You know what there needs to be more of? Premium looking and feeling Windows laptops. Have you gone into like a Best Buy or any other electronics store and just wandered into their Windows laptop section? The slight glimmer of metal here and there, but mostly cheap looking plastic devices that are either clunky or just feel overpriced. Now that's not to say that there isn't some that have good internal hardware at least, but if you want something with decent power and yet also looks like it wasn't styled by a 4-year-old with a crayon, you're pretty limited. Now if you want something that checks all of those boxes, I think I found a few options. One of them is the Razer Blade Stealth. Now, Razer sent me their Razer Blade Stealth, and let's get it out of the way now. I am in no way being paid by them, nor did I guarantee any type of review, etc. I also even have to give it back, so there's that. But I have been using it at local cafes to do my writing and my research, and I have to say there has not been one day that I've done that someone hasn't, a stranger, has not come up to me and gone, "That's a cool looking laptop." And you know what? It is a cool looking laptop. It does still feature that green light up snake logo that all Razer laptops have that is a bit gamerish to me, if we're honest. But there's something about that black aluminum body in such a small form factor that just looks sexy. It only weighs 2.8 pounds. It has a 12.5-inch screen, which also makes it pretty light and compact. That screen, by the way, has an optional 4K resolution touchscreen, which is what I have here, that is pretty damn crisp, and something that is pretty hard to find on laptops, let alone Ultrabooks. Or you can also have the 2.5K base non-touchscreen option to save a decent chunk of money. Now, the keyboard also is beautiful. It has Razer's Chroma feature that allows you to select from a variety of different color combinations like the wave, static colors, which you could choose any color in the rainbow, spectrum cycling, which essentially goes through every color in the rainbow, fire, etc. It's all super fun and unique and always turns heads. But this keyboard is actually beautiful in a non-aesthetic way. It has a fantastic clickiness to it that feels identical to its bigger brother, the Razer Blade, and is just great for typing. Something about the travel in the keys, their responsiveness, it's hard to describe. It's just satisfying unlike any other keyboard I've used. Moving down to the trackpad, this is usually the part where I say how much I hate Windows trackpads, and coming from a Mac trackpad to a Windows trackpad is really hard to do. I don't know why that is. They just aren't very accurate. They kind of suck. I end up using a USB mouse pretty much every time. With the Stealth, however, it actually has a decent trackpad. Again, for Windows, but it's pretty good. Firstly, it has no physical buttons, which my more expensive Razer Blade still has that annoys me slightly, and yet it still has a clickable trackpad. The combo of these two things alone makes it so much nicer to use. You can right-click by pushing down with 2 fingers instead of 1. You can click anywhere in the trackpad to select things. You can use gestures to make windows come up, all that fun stuff. It's just so much better. It still isn't the most precise trackpad, of which I've never found a Windows computer that has one, so there's that. But it's a better trackpad than most, including my more expensive Razer Blade that I am in no way jealous about at all. Now, performance-wise, it's not going to work for any crazy gaming, like most Ultrabooks, laptops that are this thin and light. The emphasis more is on portability. Now, it can run anything else you throw at it that isn't hardcore games, no problem, thanks to the decent chunk of RAM, the latest Intel Kaby Lake processors, and the Intel HD 620 integrated GPU. But if you want a portable gaming machine, you'd be best to look elsewhere. That is, unless you don't mind sitting still for your gaming. The Razer Blade Stealth on Razer's site is pretty obviously paired with another piece of hardware that they are famous for, the Razer Core. The Core, if you aren't familiar with my how to use an external eGPU video I did with it, which you can click the link below for, it's essentially a housing that you can place a full-size desktop GPU in, plug it in via Thunderbolt, and the laptop can use the GPU as if it was internally installed, making it way more powerful in the graphics department. To demonstrate what I mean, I bought the NVIDIA 1080 Ti new crazy GPU and put it into the Core, and then plugged it in and ran a few benchmarks, and here's what happened. In the Firestrike 3D Mark test, the Blade Stealth by itself got a paltry score of 456. With the Core and the GTX 1080 Ti in it, it scored a pretty hefty 11,208. While rendering out footage in Premiere, the Razer Blade Stealth did it in about 42 minutes to render a 4-minute 4.6K footage out at YouTube's preset of 4K. With the Core and that 1080 Ti, it took 18 minutes to render the same footage. As you can see from the physics test in the Firestrike benchmark, which is mainly a CPU-intensive thing, the Kaby Lake dual-core processors handle that just fine. But the graphics-intensive parts of the test, which are definitely not meant for an Ultrabook, it gets creamed. With the addition of the Core, however, pretty respectable frame rates that are actually comparable to my Razer Blade that runs pretty much any game I've tried to play with no problem. The Core does cost an extra $500 though. $400 if you buy it with the Stealth, because you can get an extra $100 off for that. But then you also have to buy the graphics card. Now you can get a 9 series card around the web for maybe about $200 depending on the card, all the way up to $700 if you plan to buy something like this 1080 Ti graphics card that was just announced. The battery life is definitely better than the Razer Blade, which makes a lot of sense considering the lack of a dedicated GPU like the 1060 that's in the Blade, but it lasted me about a good 6.5 hours or so, which is better than about the 4.5 that I usually get with the Blade, which isn't bad. Might even be slightly better than the HP Spectre according to a lot of places online, and not as good quite as the Dell XPS 13. And it's not even fair to mention MacBooks because their battery life is just kind of always crazy. As far as pricing is concerned, the least expensive configuration for the laptop comes with an i5 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, 2.5K non-touchscreen display, 128 gigs of storage, and it costs $899, which is super cheap for a laptop that looks and feels like it costs a lot more. The other two models available at the moment each have the Kaby Lake i7 processor, 4K touchscreen displays, 16 gigs of RAM, and are available in 512 gigs or 1 terabyte of storage, which is $1,500 and $1,900 respectively. Now those prices are all sort of right on par with the other really cool premium Ultrabooks in this category. The HP Spectre, for example, and the Dell XPS 13. Now, each of those laptops kind of also have some things that maybe the Blade Stealth doesn't. The Spectre has the 2-in-1 kind of format and also has a pen, whereas, and it's also a premium feeling laptop in its own right. The Dell XPS 13 has that really nice Infinity Edge screen that's just really sexy when you see it. But regardless, neither of them quite feel as premium and as well built and as solid as, say, the Blade Stealth. And on top of that, there's always that uniqueness factor too that people have to always ask you, what laptop company is that? Now, the addition of the Core is a unique differentiator, but you could potentially go find a cheaper eGPU and use it with the XPS or the Spectre, for example, because they both have Thunderbolt, and that's a big prerequisite for using a eGPU. But in doing that, you need to expect that there will be at least a few headaches with trying to get them to work, since they are not supported by those manufacturers and they're not really meant to be used with an eGPU. Which makes the real benefit of the Core and the Stealth combo the fact that they are properly supported by the manufacturer, and so you will always be able to get them to work and call them if you can't. Not to mention, the Core is kind of just as sexy as the Stealth. Now, I love the Stealth, honestly, but I need to edit footage everywhere. Planes, trains, random countries, and to carry around that Core and an external monitor as well, because you need an external monitor for the graphics card to work properly for the most part, it's just not really feasible for me. So the bigger brother normal Blade between the two is probably a better option for me. But if you want a really nice feeling premium Ultrabook that is easy to carry around, has a great keyboard, screen, is really snappy at doing your everyday stuff, even maybe just not so much at gaming, that's fine, but then also has that option for you to then sit it down, plug in a Core and a monitor, and you can use it for your gaming experience, then I would highly recommend at least putting the Stealth on your list of options to check out.